My name is Olivia Huffman. I am a senior psychology major here at the University of Kentucky. I am also a student athlete on the swimming and dive team, and I am part of the P20 Motivation and Learning Lab under Dr. Ellen Usher. Student athletes not only face adjusting to the normal college demands in academic life, like taking harder classes, but they also have to learn to adjust to the rigorous athletic demands like training and competition. This may make the transition from high school to college more difficult for student athletes than non-athletes. I also noticed within my first year that people tend to make assumptions about student athletes' academic abilities. They generally tend to assume that we aren't as academically capable as our non-athlete peers, and they make stereotypes about our abilities. So this made me wonder, do academic self-beliefs of student athletes differ from non-student athletes within their first year of college? Specifically, we wanted to look at mindset abilities and self-efficacy. On your left-hand side of the screen, I describe mindset abilities, and that is people's perceptions about their ability to improve upon their abilities or if their ability is more fixed. So students may think people's math ability is something about them that they can't change very much. On the right-hand side of the screen, I describe self-efficacy or confidence. Students may think, I can master the skills taught in my STEM classes. So our P20 Motivation and Learning Lab conducted a study over 3 years where we surveyed over 6,000 first-year undergraduate students on their academic self-beliefs. And these surveys were given within their first semester of college. Of that 6,000, 122 were student athletes. And we used propensity score matching to select an equivalent comparison group of non-athletes based on race, gender, high school achievement, and first-generation status. From that, we then compared our means for students in each group. For fixed mindset, you can see our results in this graph on the left with the effect sizes in green. Student athletes reported marginally different higher levels of fixed intelligent abilities and fixed math abilities. So this means that they have a more rigid view about these abilities. For self-efficacy, again, our effect sizes are in green, but students reported significantly lower reports of self-efficacy in the humanities subjects than non-athletes. So why might these differences exist? One of the reasons that we thought of was that student athletes coming out of high school might be more calibrated about their abilities than non-student athletes. On a day-to-day basis, we are getting critiqued and criticized by our coaches, and this could lead us to have a more realistic understanding of our abilities, but this is definitely something that needs to be investigated more and is in our next steps. However, I was surprised to find that student athletes reported higher levels of fixed mindset for intelligence and math ability. We work really hard in and out of our sport, and we can tangibly see improvements in our peers and ourselves athletically, but these experiences aren't seeming to translate into the classroom. So as coaches and teachers, we need to make sure that we are supporting student athletes as they transition from high school to college. And one way we can do this is by challenging fixed mindsets and helping students develop a growth mindset. And we can do this by using effort-based feedback instead of performance-based feedback. Second, we can support student athletes, we can support their confidence in the humanities subjects by providing them with more support academically in those subjects, and that could look like giving them more tutors or a mentor for their humanities courses. And third, we need to emphasize the power of beliefs in sport and school. So not just focusing on athletic abilities, but also focusing on academic abilities for student athletes. And by doing this, we are going to help student athletes develop not only in their sport, but also help them excel academically in the classroom. Thank you so much for your time. I'm open to any questions.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this talk, and it just makes me think about all different kinds of ways to approach this particular problem. I wonder, it's quite interesting that you did find differences between the athletes and the non-athletes. I wouldn't necessarily have assumed that that was the case. And so my first question to you is, did you consider asking them questions that would ascertain whether these students had a kind of fixed mindset about their own athletic skills? So, for example, some people might just say, I'm born fast, or I'm born a good swimmer, or whatever it is, and that if that's how they perceive their own success athletically, maybe that's a direct translation to their perceptions of their academic abilities. Is that a question that you would consider?
Yes, this is definitely something we consider. So for this study, we just looked at academic self-beliefs, and we weren't able to compare it to athletic beliefs. But this is definitely something that I want to do in grad school. I know athletes, there's scales out there that measure academic or athletic identity and how that would play a role in academic outcomes. But yes, that is a great question.
Just to follow up, again, it's just wonderful to be able to compare athletic performance versus academic performance. I was interested to hear that one of your recommendations is that students should receive effort-based feedback versus performance-based feedback. Is that what happens on the training field or in the locker room with the coach?
Are you saying that this is like something that coaches could do? Yeah, so I guess as an example from my life, say I'm having a dual meet as a swim meet against some other SEC school, and we might lose. Instead of the coach saying, oh my gosh, you guys lost, we can't get any better, they can say, okay, your effort was really, really good. We did some things right, we did some things wrong. Let's see how we can improve upon this and get better and grow. And so that's kind of how you develop this growth mindset. And that the coaches can also do this for academics. They get reports of our grades every week, and they can check in and be like, hey, I noticed you're struggling in your math class. What's going on? And if the student is like, I've just been failing, I don't know how to improve, that's where the coach can say, you know what, keep trying, put some more effort in, and if you are putting in all the effort you can, let's figure out a way to get you to where you need to be academically as well. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. That's wonderful.
Thank you very much, Olivia. First, we'll start with my ignorance. Tell me on our scale, what is T and P, or is that row, tau and row? But what are they indicating?
So P is your significance, and if you have a significance of less than 0.05, that's significant, but ours were marginally, so you can't necessarily say that they are significant. And then T, okay, so our statistician in the lab, who's on a co-author to this, she was the one who inserted T, but I believe it is the difference in the means, I believe.
Okay.
If she explained that correctly.
Is nodding his head, so I'll
if
go
I
with that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, because it's not my area. What do you think? So you said you did this with first-year students, right? Do you think, or are you all considering surveying at later years in the college career? Because my guess would be, my hypothesis would be that, especially if you could track the same 400 or 244 folks, that you would see changes in their perceptions of themselves as they grow and they develop. Is that something, what would you hypothesize?
Yeah, so that's definitely something that I would, again, want to look at. I don't know if we are going to be doing that, but I would definitely hypothesize that college, like from the literature, we know that college is kind of like a mini life cycle for all students. But for student athletes, especially in my own life, when I was a freshman, I didn't believe in myself as much as I do now as a senior. And so I definitely think there's going to be differences in growth mindset and in self-efficacy. I, for one, definitely have grown so much throughout my college career, and so I definitely think there would be differences.
And finally, I have to ask, what are your events?
I swim 50 freestyle and 100 freestyle, and then backstroke, so 100 and 200.
Those were my events as well.
Thank you, Olivia. So your instrument measures fixed mindset versus growth mindset, and I'm just envisioning that there's a continuum there, or a distribution, if you will, that is perhaps not symmetric, so that a high fixed mindset may not necessarily imply a low growth mindset. So just, and so I think your examples pointed to the coaching process as encouraging a growth mindset. And I was also an intercollegiate athlete, and I remember some of those speeches that you described. It's just that they were much louder and laced with profanity. But
yeah.
So just as a suggestion, maybe comment on how you might approach that, and that's my first question.
Yeah, no, that's definitely great. I think so. The way that we asked, we didn't necessarily say this is measuring fixed mindset. We asked students, do you believe that your math ability can be improved? And so they asked out of a scale of 1 to 4, or they answered a scale of 1 to 4, 0 being I can change my abilities, 4 being I cannot change my abilities in math. So if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I might have framed the presentation a little differently to emphasize the growth side of it, but yeah, it makes sense. And then with your propensity score matching, did the non-athlete side of the sample have the same proportion of females, URM, et cetera?
Yes, so we did this to control for any selection bias. So what you see for athletes is what you see for our non-student athletes.
And were both sides randomly selected or convenience sampling?
So the surveys were given to first-year students, well, all students, but in their writing classes. So I guess kind of convenience sample.
Okay, but I guess on the athlete side, so it was tied to their enrollment in that particular class.
Yeah.
So one certainly could argue there may be some variation across sports.
Definitely.
So that's probably something to look at in the future, for sure. And having as a faculty member, having taught a lot of intercollegiate athletes, there are some fundamentally different attributes across students that select a particular sport versus another. I sat next to a member of the swim team at University of Tennessee in accounting, and that was the most disciplined person I'd ever seen. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for your comments and questions. I also would like to thank you. I believe you funded the larger part of this study, so thank you so much for that. Also, I would just like to say that differentiating sports regarding academics, I think, is super important. And unfortunately, we couldn't do it with this, but that is something that I am working on, and hopefully we can do something with the different sports. So thank you.